ago, I was talking at an event for women entrepreneurs about money and my pursuit of $1 billion company when a gal from the audience raised her hand and says, "What makes you qualified for such a big dream?" And I can tell you at first I was taken back, but I realized that people who ask these type of questions don't believe that they are capable of a big dream. And whenever you talk about your big dreams to people who don't have big dreams, it can often sound ridiculous. And because we're at the start of a brand new year and you might have a dream of buying a house or pursuing something in business or investing in the stock market that doesn't sound realistic today, you might feel kind of silly. And so I want to talk about what it takes to pursue big dreams, even if they're not realistic in the moment, and how do we persevere beyond our limiting beliefs and obstacles. So for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Lizy Hoeffer. I'm a residential loan officer at Cross Country Mortgage, and I normally teach practical money tips so that you can make a smart money move. But today we're going to talk a little bit about business and about goals and about how to set ourselves up for success. So welcome and welcome back if you are a fan to the channel. Many of you know me as Lizy the loan officer. You might think of me as an investor. You might think of me as a mama. I am all of those things, but I'm also an entrepreneur. And for the last 3 years, I have been working on an app called SmartCents that I believe will change my industry and solve so many consumers' problems when it relates to understanding their finances and setting big money goals. And for a lot of people, this might sound ridiculous. I remember in that particular talk, I was saying how you just have to believe passionately about the problem that you are solving and your solution and be persistent as hell. The thing is, I'm a women's studies major from a really small border town. I grew up poor. I don't have a particularly strong tech background, but I am an expert in my field. I have worked 21 years with people and their finances. And so I think I know better than most what are the limitations and the problems that create a lower credit score or create a bunch of debt or prevent them from being able to do things like invest in the stock market or buy houses. I feel like I am an expert in my field, and I'm also very, very persistent, right? So if I don't know something, I'm gonna go learn it. If I fail, I'm gonna figure out how not to fail or do better next time. I'm not afraid, honestly, of sucking at the very beginning, of learning, of being a beginner. And that's the kind of attitude that it takes to build a company, to solve a big mainstream problem, to change an industry. You have to be relentless in that pursuit because you're passionate about who it helps and why it's a solution. So I will say that number one amongst all the things, it's like, why is this a particular goal? Now, it doesn't have to be $1 billion company that you're pursuing. It could be buying a house. Like, what is this house going to do for you and your family? How long do you plan on owning this house? Like, what kind of returns do you want to see? And what kind of impact would that have on your family and your life? When we can get beyond just the, oh, I'm going to buy a house for the sake of buying a house, when we can really dig into the why, we have a whole lot more energy for the perseverance it takes when you find out that your credit needs to be worked on, or you need to save a larger down payment, or you need to pay off debt. If you really understand how this change, this move will change your life, it's a lot easier to pursue a big dream. So I want to break down vision because it's a first step in figuring out your plan for the year. And so if you're not particularly passionate about anything, if nothing is coming to mind, like some people are like, okay, I'm losing 20 pounds, I'm buying a house, I'm buying a new car, I'm going on this vacation. If nothing like that sparks joy for you, I want you to figure out what the biggest pain point in your life, because one of the best motivators I find is survival and getting out of pain. And so for most people, when it relates to their finances, I find that pain is a good place to focus. And typically that pain is in relation to cash flow. So people either find themselves in too much debt or they feel frustrated by the amount of earnings that they have. And so if you can focus on the biggest pain point to you right now, what would it mean if you change that? And how much would you have to have in order to change that in a meaningful way? How would that make you feel? What would that mean to you as a person, as a family member, as a parent? And then how would that change impact the people that you love, right? Is this a solution for everyone? You can take that same framework and also apply it to a passion. I find that pain is typically a longer term motivator unless whatever you are passionate about has an anchor in like multiple people being attached to it. An example of this is a couple years ago, I wanted to take my kids to Disneyland. For me, it's like I've always wanted to go with my kids. I thought it would be super fun to ride roller coasters. I thought they would have long-lasting memories and it would make me feel like an incredible mom. And not to mention, like, it would be an amazing experience for my kids. So like attaching something for me that was important to people that I love made it more meaningful. Now, the other thing that you have to realize is some people have big passions or big pain points that cannot be solved in 1 year. You'll want to break things down into 12-week goals, which is what I find to be the most digestible. So you'll break this big goal into steps. So like what can be accomplished in 1 year, what can be accomplished in 3 or 5 years. And then in the 1 year, you're gonna wanna look at 6 months, quarterly, weekly, monthly, daily goals that you can focus on, and then try to revisit those goals every 12 weeks to make sure that you are staying in focus. If you do not have smaller like goals to a bigger vision, you will feel like you are not winning. And I don't know a whole lot of people that will persevere without any wins. And so I'm the type of person that has to set like 12-week goals so that I can constantly adjust and recalibrate, and that I can celebrate smaller wins along the way. The next thing I want to talk about is support. So oftentimes when people think of a vision, they forget that there are a lot of components to completing that vision. And this is what I call support. So I'm looking at who am I hanging out with, who's holding me accountable, does this person care about this goal? Is this goal important to them? And do I care about letting them down? Support is really important because if you have people that do not believe you behind you or around you, it'll be harder to achieve that goal unless you're dead set on proving them wrong. My kids in that trip to Disneyland were the people that held me the most accountable. The goal was important to them. They talked about it all the time. And in order to hit that goal, I had to set myself up with a supportive schedule that allowed me for daily prospecting, and I had a roadmap for how many deals and leads I needed to have, plus a conversion rate. And so support is people, but it's also your plan, your time block, the resources, your network. I had a good accountability partners. I had a very structured roadmap for how I was going to succeed. And then I utilized people within my network to make it easier. So I hired a travel agent. I talked to other moms who had recently taken a similar trip and what made it easier for them and things I needed to know. Many of them like would share checklists and different backpacks and all kinds of travel tips for airplanes. That trip was a lot easier because it was broken down into a variety of digestible goals and milestones, along with a very supportive group of people that cared about the success of the project. Now, this is a very simple example, but if you have a big vision for your finances or for your business, a lot of those simple components are exactly what you need in order to have a supportive environment and friends and network to make it a reality. After support, you're really going to want to look at tools and resources. I am not super strong in tech, so for me, this has been a very large and very expensive learning curve. So I will tell you that things I wish I would have done different is I wish I would have contacted people that had built big tech apps and asked them where they would have started, what big mistakes they made at the very beginning, what they wish they would have known. Many of them were willing to share vendors with me, which really was very surprising. They introduced me to other people that could help me, but I didn't start that until 2 years into my journey. So I ended up hiring a bunch of contractors that really took advantage of me, that didn't really know what they were doing. It was an expensive learning process, one that involved a lot of painful lessons that I will never forget that are applicable to a variety of different business verticals. It's not a total loss, but I wish I would have done that and spent way more time investigating the type of structures and the types of ways that I could have rolled this out, because it would have saved me a bunch of costs. And I'm glad that those costs were incurred by me before I started fundraising. So you cannot have a big dreams, big business video and not talk about costs. And money is one of those things that people either feel overly confident and spend too much when it comes to investing or it comes to businesses, or aren't willing to spend enough to see their dream become a reality. And so it is so important that whenever you are taking on any kind of investment, that you understand the costs associated with it and what the penalty is for you pursuing it. Like on a business, look at P&Ls. Like you can do a P&L search online for your type of business and you can see all different kinds. You can talk to other business owners, really get an idea of what they're paying and spending and what their gross margins are. In an investment, you can look at appreciation rates, cash flow rates, but there is hard costs with closing costs, down payments, maintenance, inspections. There's a lot of cost to owning a home. And then in stocks and other types of investments, like people are like, oh, well, it's not a big deal, it's just a stock. There's also the cost of the account or the financial advisor. Different types of stocks and investments have different fees attached to them. So you always want to know there's always a hard cost to anything you pursue money-wise. Now in business, the next thing you have to focus on is revenue. So you want to get your product to market as soon as possible, generating cash flow. For money investments, obviously people invest for a variety of things like growth and equity. They invest for cash flow. I am obviously pursuing SmartCents because I believe it'll have a big payday in the future. And one thing you want to consider in addition to just the hard costs and the cash flow is the opportunity cost for whatever investment you pursue. So for example, when I started pursuing SmartCents, I realized I wasn't going to have as much money to put into the stock market or to buy real estate with. And it's going to take a long time to see the big dollars that I believe I'll get here. And what is that overall cost, right? So like if this failed, I would lose the cost of investing. So all the money that I put in and the returns I would have had I put it in the stock market. So there is a lot of risk here, but I believe the financial payday will be greater than any of the returns I would have had in any of those traditional vehicles. And I believe in it and I'm persistent enough to continue to try it. Now, if you find that that would just not be worth it, if it would destroy your family, then that's maybe not the right business or investment to pursue. And that's a really, really good litmus test. Oftentimes I find that people aren't willing to put in their own money to their dreams. I know that there's like this crazy idea that you can have this great business idea, write a business plan on a napkin, and people are going to give you millions of dollars, but it doesn't work that way. I know it has worked that way for some people, but traditionally you're going to want to build a business that you fund, that then you get other people to put their money behind, that then has a product that people are willing to buy. And then once you have revenue and profit, then you're able to scale and then sell. Those are all the things you have to keep in mind. I know there are a lot of financial modeling systems online. I would get some books on profit and loss, on scaling businesses, on understanding things. There's a bunch of online courses you can take too, but really, really, really hammer into those finances. I will tell you that even as somebody who has an abundant mindset towards making money, one of the biggest challenges has been in retaining it and really putting limitations on my budget. It's like kind of nuts. So that is an area within my own money mindset that I'm currently working on very diligently so that I can really get ahead in my future. Which leads me to my next point, which is all about mindset. Now, mindset is one of those underrated business focuses that people think is like woo-woo, but you guys, how you take care of your mind and how you take care of your physical body is so important in any kind of entrepreneurial pursuit. I mean, it is not for the faint of heart, let me tell you. You have to have the physical stamina to work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week for a really long time, like a really long time. Not to mention you have to have a tremendous amount of energy to get on phone calls, to raise capital, to sell your product all the time, to make marketing videos, social media, creativity. I mean, the amount of energy that you expend building a business or creating a big vision is nuts, and you have to be physically fit to do it and mentally fit. And so it's important to meditate, to go to therapy, to work on your limiting belief systems. I mean, many entrepreneurs, many people suffer from imposter syndrome. Like, we may believe deeply in this passion, this problem we're solving, and yet there's this voice at the back of our minds that's telling us why we're gonna fail, why no one's gonna like us. We have people who tell us to our face that they don't understand our business and they don't know that this will work or they can't see it. You know, you get a lot of criticism and a lot of feedback pursuing big dreams. And so if you're not strong up here and physically capable of like consistently pursuing this, you won't make it. And I don't think that there is enough emphasis on this when they talk about what you will need, because we're not physical athletes, you know, or professional athletes. But it is something that you really need to focus on. I know that when I started pursuing this, I had to get a lot healthier just to be able to have the stamina to pursue this job, my day job, and be a present mom. So I hope that you take this to heart. And if in your practice right now you're not working out, wake up earlier, work out, at least get a walk in, journal, like listen to positive podcasts, and go to therapy and work on whatever issues are going to prevent you mindset-wise from getting ahead. The next thing I'm going to tell you isn't technically tactical when it comes to creating a big vision, but it is the focus on mindset. I find as an entrepreneur, it is not for the faint of heart. And in fact, it requires a high level of mental capacity and physical stamina to keep going, to work late hours, to have energy for big meetings, to show up for videos and be creative for marketing, and to have the time and focus not to stress out about finances. I mean, it's a lot. And so if you're not somebody who is putting in a ton of time and effort, keeping yourself healthy physically and working on practices like meditation, going to therapy, personal development, if you're not the type of person that is building their mindset and their physical health, it will be very challenging to pursue a big entrepreneurial or financial dream. And I know that it sounds like opposite of a financial goal, but big goals require so much physical and mental resources. It's a requirement. So I will tell you that when I started pursuing this entrepreneurial dream, I had to get way physically healthier so that I had the energy and capacity to do 2 jobs at one time. I also had to go to therapy because I really suffer from this thing called imposter syndrome. So I believe deeply in my vision. I feel passionate about the problem it is solving, and yet I have this crazy voice in my head that is always telling me why I cannot pursue this, and feels extra sensitive when I hear criticism and feedback that I don't like. And so for me, pursuing a journey down emotional regulation is super important. Being on this entrepreneurial journey is like a roller coaster, and it is for many, many people. We pour our love, sweat, and tears into this, and when things go up and down, we go up and down. And so I will tell you that the more focus you can have in being calm, collected, focused, determined, it's what's going to keep you consistent and give you the fuel to the perseverance that you need to pursue the vision, to stay focused on the structure that you are setting up, to not get scared when things don't look great financially, to figure out where you're going to capitalize on resources and opportunities. I would say putting money where your brain and physical body are important. Putting focus there is important, and probably not the only component that you need to a big vision, but definitely one of the most important. Last but not least, because I do think that this final hurdle is what prevents people from really moving forward, but what are the roadblocks that are really going to prevent progress? And so that can be in terms of resources like money, like maybe you don't have enough money to fund your project. Maybe you don't have all of the right resources in terms of people. Maybe it's a timing issue. Maybe you have timing issue things like picking up your kids at school, or maybe you're working 2 jobs, right? Like there's timing aspects that can create roadblocks. It's knowledge aspects that can create roadblocks. Now, a roadblock isn't a stopping point unless you make it a stopping point. Sometimes it's causes you to slow down, but so long as you are always working on systems, tools, delegation to help solve around it, you'll be fine. An example for me is I am a working mom of 3 kids. I have a full-time day job and I have 3 kids. And so my time block has to be extremely tight. And I dedicate an entire day to SmartCents, and I wake up really early on most days so that I can get more done with my day, because I know I have timing obstacles that I will always have to deal with. Another thing is I don't know everything there is to know about tech. So I've had to join tech groups online, networking groups where I've asked a bunch of dumb questions, but I keep having to learn things so that I can make better decisions with my company. Right now, I'm on the pursuit of a UX copy editor. I haven't been able to find one. This is a slowdown point for me, but I'm persistent enough to keep pursuing finding it, and I'll find someone. So just know that you need to know ahead of time the things that you don't have or will create issues. And I would try to forecast these for every quarter. So I just did a review for the first quarter of SmartCents, and I'm like, okay, here are all the things that I can see that are holes right now within our business that I'm gonna start pursuing now, because by March, I need to have solutions to all of these so that we don't slow down progress. I would list out everything that's preventing the project from moving forward. And is this a resource, education, network problem that can be resolved? Or is it, do you need to raise capital or finance? Now, one thing I will say as it relates to capital, you have to be willing to fund your own project. And sometimes you have to be willing to fund your own project before you can collect money from anyone else. I know in the business world, it sounds kind of crazy because you've heard all these different people who've written business plans on napkins and gotten millions of dollars. It does not work like that. So a lot of the money that I have put into SmartCents has been money that I have earned, but it's because I am so passionate about what it does. I'm willing to roll the dice on myself. If you aren't willing to roll the dice on yourself, is this really a project you want to be pursuing? And I often times find that if you aren't willing to put in $1, that's a pretty good litmus test for it's not your real passion or a real pain point in your life. I know that this is a quick video on how to construct, like build a framework for a big vision. And I don't want it to be oversimplistic. And I also don't want it to be overly complicated. Having an idea and a big passion isn't complicated. It's rather simple, but it is a lot of hard work. And so because I could talk about this for hours, in fact, days, I've created a newsletter so that I could talk about this entrepreneurial journey. I felt kind of alone and really lost a lot of it. And I know there's a ton of books, but I'd never really seen someone like me build a big vision. It's always people that I couldn't really relate to. So if you relate to me, I hope you'll sign up for the $1 Billion Babe newsletter. I'm going to put the link in the description below. And also we have some really fun merch. If you've heard me speak live or you've heard or watched any of my videos, I always tell people that you have to talk about money and your passion in high vibe voice. And so I always make everyone scream at the top of their lungs that they love money and money loves them. Because I believe that's the kind of energy that's going to propel us forward in fueling our dreams. And I have always had really positive money mindset mantras because it helps me over time feel less and less like an imposter and someone who is just open to any opportunity that comes her way. So I hope you guys will check out the merch. I hope you guys will support me on the journey. I hope if you're curious, we can set up a live. Let me know. I'm going to start those again on Wednesdays. So tune in to the next video. Look out for the next live post. And guys, let's make it a kick-ass year.